To Knicks Chicks family, welcome back to another episode. I'm your girl, Lady and the Chef, and I'm joined by my co-host today.
Diva.
Another day, another Knicks win. The Knicks have now won two in a row. Seems to be a pattern for February where the Knicks will win um, like two, lose one, win one, maybe lose one. But they seem to rebound nonetheless back, right? Um, but yeah, good to see that the Knicks beat the Bucks. I didn't catch that game live, but I did watch the highlights of that game. But that was a nice win for the Knicks from what I saw. And honestly, that's a team that the Knicks should be beating as Milwaukee, just haven't been having a good season. Um, so I'm happy that they got that win. And then today's game, a nice matinee game. Sometimes with the Knicks, I get a little nervous when they play matinee games because they're early and you don't know what the Knicks' energy is going to be like when they play those early games. But I thought the Knicks came out with solid energy. They had good ball movement in the first half specifically. They looked really sharp, even though the Knicks were down initially in the beginning by a few, but they still looked good. Like I felt good watching that game. Um, I thought there was a lot of good passes in that game as well. The Knicks also led every quarter of this game, which is a good sign. I like when the Knicks do that, when they can lead every quarter. It just shows that they're being dominant and aggressive. And considering this is a good win because the Knicks beat a Spurs team that just had won 11 games in a row. So the Knicks, I thought it was a solid win. They won 114 and 89. Um, what stood out for you in that game, or who stood out for you in that game? What are your takeaways from the game?
Game, that defensive intensity, because OG was on, he gave like, again, it started from that and it just carried over, which is a great thing. But there was so many, pluses that stood out for me, with the Knicks. And again, it carried, that defensive intensity carried over from the Bucks into the Spurs. And the Knicks, they knew what they were up, they were up for the challenge for the most part, and they knew what they were going up against. Um, what stood out again, although they were down, like I think 19-7, just Brunson, just that impact that he made. And when you called me up and I says, oh, how Brunson, how he's shooting, I said, well, he has to, take over. And that's what he did. Just
Yeah,
his ability to be able to like get open and, and just score at will on and anywhere in the court. He went on an 11-0 run himself, and he was able to catapult like the Knicks and what they went into like the first quarter, just like they were up 22-21. Um, and it was so many things. Like they were just locked in. Um, they active hands, just they had like 13 steals, so that means, we're, moving our feet, we're not just putting our arms out and, hoping the ball. So, again, just being, at the right place at the right time, just positioning themselves. And, again, that was like one of the things that really stood out for me. Um, and Mikal, I mean, this hats off to Mikal. And this is the player that we want to see. Yeah, I know you we're not going to get that every night, but if we could get a decent output from him, you know, give us a 2 game, 3 game stretch where we get that, production from him. Yeah, he was awesome. 25 points, 5 for 9 from the threes, three from the charity stripe. He had what, 5 steals. You could take away the 5 fouls, but just like that's the player we need. You know, he's a part of this nucleus as well. You know, whether he's the fourth or fifth, just what he gave us. He had 5 steals. That's, yeah, you saw him, just his movement, like that was just a great, a game for him.
Yeah, I thought Mikal looked a little resemblance of like an OG Ananobi out there with the
Yeah.
way he had active hands and feet and was able to get a lot of steals. He was looking aggressive. His energy looked up. There was some times though in the game where Mikal, and it wasn't just Mikal. I noticed it like with Josh Hart as well, where they have this thing, and I kind of want to touch on this later too, but where Mikal had got the ball a few times. And I'm expecting Mikal specifically to be aggressive and score, whereas I'm not really expecting that so much with Josh Hart as much, even though he has gotten a lot better. His shooting is better this season, but there's been a few times in this game where I saw, and I see this in a lot of games, but where Mikal had got the ball, and I don't know if this was in the third quarter, but he had the ball. And then Mikal was right in the paint. He was like a little bit above the free throw line, and he literally turned around instead of looking at the basket to
Mm,
score
yeah.
and threw the ball out and was looking for Brunson. And I'm like, I don't understand why the Knicks do that. And Wemby wasn't there. He wasn't there to go and try to block it. So I'm like, I don't understand that mentality with the Knicks where if you have the ball and you're close to the basket, why is the first reaction instinct to pass the ball out? And like Josh Hart does that a lot too, where this game specifically, although Josh did do a good job with like he got some good rebounds, he got a few blocks, he was aggressive defensively, but and I think you called it out when we were texting over the game, like there's this indecisiveness, and I think you said he's overthinking, but you can see it because it's like they want to get the ball back to Brunson. And I'm like, to me, playing that way can hurt the Knicks in the long run in the playoffs because if your first instinct, excuse me, is to always go back to Brunson, now the defense you're making a defense's job easier because they're kind of like, well, okay, we really don't need to play solid strong defense because no one else is really going to attack or be aggressive and try to score besides Brunson. And I noticed that a few times in the game. But again, I'm not going to take away from the good game that Mikal had. I thought Mikal, again, he did have a good game. He did remind me a lot of the mannerisms in this game, reminded me a lot of what you would see OG Ananobi, who also had a good game as well. But I think you wanted to add on to that. I saw you trying to say something about that.
Oh no, no, but although that play, Wemby wasn't in there, s- sometimes it's like the player, like I don't know if it's conditioning where you, like you said, they revert to Brunson. It's like he's that safety net, for them. Um, and like you said, we saw Josh do it. Like Mikal, and like you said, you don't want to take anything from him, but it's like you gotta trust yourself,
Right.
and bet on yourselves. And so I mean, and it was another play too where oh where Castle, where he had got the rebound, he put it in, and it was like that again. It was that defensive lapse, and one I think it was Malone. He says, "Oh well, they're gonna be watching a lot of film on that." With and he did it like twice, and then Vassell did it. So it's like these are the little things, and I'm quite sure that they're gonna definitely go over and film. Like guys like Mikal, you were open, like what
Right.
I'm saying. So that's definitely something that's gonna be honed, and where Coach Brown definitely addressed that.
I heard Mike Malone was telling Ryan Rucco, who we absolutely both love.
Yes.
And I like when he calls Knicks games, and I'd rather him over Doris Burke. But and also because he's a huge New York Liberty fan as well. But there was a point where Mike Malone had mentioned Mike Brown. He notices that, he said, I know it's not an easy job for Mike Brown or any coach to come in and pick up
Yeah.
where Tibbs left off, right? And he mentioned how he felt like Mike Brown had made the adjustments And I thought to myself, I don't think he's made enough adjustments in the game in games in this season so far because again, and going back to Mike Brown, Ryan Rucco said, "Do you think the Knicks are contenders this season?" And he said, "If the Knicks could figure out how to get past Detroit." And I
Yeah.
said, "Bingo."
Yep.
That's exactly the issue because I still to this day, call me a salty Sandy because I am. I still scratch my head and I watched the Knicks ever since that Detroit loss. And I'm like, how are you able to figure out how to beat a lot of these other teams or not get blown out? But somehow with Detroit, you haven't figured it out. And I saw some people in comments on other Knicks content creators' lives because I do pay attention to the chats. And I saw someone in particular say, I'm not worried about the Knicks because they proved last year in the playoffs, while last season they couldn't beat Boston in the regular series, they figured out how to beat them in the playoffs. While that is true, that was last year.
Exactly.
And this Detroit team is not the same team. And we went over this before, but to me, that's what I'm looking for. And not just against Detroit, but even other teams. Like, what are the adjustments that Mike Brown is making against these teams so that we can compete and battle? Because, you know, a win is a win, and I thought this was a great solid win for the Knicks, yes. But to me, the Spurs are a really good team, right? You just won 11 in a row. I'm looking at their record. I'm like, wow, they only lost 16 games today, 17 games, but still, they're a really good team. But to me, the Knicks seem to have control over the Spurs and can figured out how to beat them.
Yeah.
But
And
when
wait,
you
I just want to put a pin in there. And it's so ironic, or not even ironic, just funny. Now the Spurs have beat, I think, OKC 3 times. And the Knicks, like, so it's funny how Spurs are a young team, just like how Detroit. But Detroit is a more physical team
right,
than the Spurs. And I think only way the Knicks are gonna get past the Detroit is with physicality. You're not. I'm sorry. Even experience, I don't think is gonna just pull them through unless they match that defensive intensity. Otherwise, than that, you could. I'll see you. You could see you in Cancun. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, I do think that's a good point. But also, if Mike Brown and the coaching staff are smart, they would use that physicality that Detroit is giving and use that to make that to Detroit's disadvantage and get them in foul trouble. And the Knicks don't utilize that because even last year when we played Indiana, the Knicks didn't even get Indiana in foul trouble. They just allowed them to do whatever they wanted. There was no getting guys in foul trouble individually, getting them in team foul trouble. And that's what I mean by those are the adjustments that I'm looking for Mike Brown. I'm looking for different setups where not just Cade, but other guys, where you get them in foul trouble. And I don't see the Knicks capitalize on doing that against team. Excuse me, doing that against teams. And I'm like, where does the change come from? You know what I mean? So that when you're playing against these teams, you're not getting your ass handed to you. And although the Knicks have been doing pretty well as far as the scoring, they've been getting well over 100 these past few games. It's been looking pretty good. Today looked a lot better in the scoring.
Yeah,
But,
for sure.
I just wanted to bring that up because when I heard Mike Malone, you know, referring to Mike Brown, and he said, oh, I feel like he's made good adjustments. I'm like, what good adjustments has he made? And that's why I said I wanted to rescind my grade when we did the midseason grades on Mike Brown because I feel like, you know, I don't know. I think there's some. I like that he's given like a guy like Mo Diawara playing time. I think he's proven himself. He's getting better. You took Jordan Clarkson out of the lineup. I think it's gonna be hard for him to get back in the lineup.
Yeah.
And same thing for Jeremy Shohan. But I don't know. I think that the adjustments for Mike Brown, I'm waiting to see what does he do, especially with this March schedule coming up, and this particularly the teams that we have coming up this upcoming week, and moving forward, what are the Knicks gonna do?
Well, again, like from the Bucks game then to this game. I'm hoping it prepares them for their upcoming games. The next five, was it 4 more games they have or something like that, because the Knicks did everything right. They don't get me wrong. They started horrible. When the Spurs took that 19-7 lead, but then they finished stronger. They came out with the win, and that was doing part with, again, that defensive intensity. They forced the Spurs into 22 turnovers, which resulted into like 24 points. Um, so it was they did a hell of a lot of things right in this game, and I just hope
Hmm.
that they really dissect this game down, um, and just see, like, okay, boom, this is what we did, because like you said, the Spurs came with, hadn't lost a game in all of February. They had one of the longest active win streaks, which was 11, and so the Knicks broke that. Um, and held them to a season low, 89 points, and the Spurs averaged like 110 a game. And it was like the third best offensive rating, which is the Knicks, against the third best defensive rating, which is the Spurs. So,
Right.
we always, and a lot of people say, oh, defense win championships. Well, offense, if the Knicks could ramp that defense up, then they would be in contention, because in this instance, although their defense was on point, the offense was clicking. So
Yeah.
so that was a plus for them. So it's just like they just have to just like really break this game down, and bring that into their upcoming schedule, because they got a rough one ahead of them.
Yeah.
And speaking of, the Knicks have one of the toughest schedules to close out the season. You
Hmm.
know, with these next games that they have, to close out. So again, they did a hell of a lot of great things in this game today.
Yeah. But see, my issue with the Knicks is that, like I said a few minutes ago, you've proven that you could beat the Spurs. I'm not even just talking about in the NBA cup, but you've proven that you could beat them. And I think it does speak volumes that you were able to beat a team after they've had however long of a win streak that they've had, right? We've seen where the Knicks have had an 8, 9 game win streak. But I also think that the Spurs looked flat this game and they were off. So I wonder if it would have been a different game if they would have been knocking, because Wemby was off. A lot of the guys, they were missing shots. They had looks, but I wonder if the game would have been a different. Not. I think the Knicks would have definitely won, but if it would have maybe not been a blowout had the Spurs were on and were knocking down shots.
No, again, I think that the Knicks are a perfect matchup for the Spurs. The Spurs are ascending, man. They climbing up into the ladder. They're third out in the West. I just think that the Knicks are a better team when it comes down to the Spurs.
Right.
Um, no, because now I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you can't make excuses for the Spurs. Listen here, I don't care. Nobody's feeling sorry for them. Nobody will feel sorry for the Knicks. You know, so the Knicks are just a better team than them, and they put together a stellar game, and they got that W. They got down, and they never took, like they said, they never took their foot off their necks. They never let them get within 8. Um, so yeah, the Knicks were just a better team today.
Yeah, I do think they are a good matchup with the Spurs. I think I'm just saying that I wonder if it would have been a different outcome had the Knicks would have I mean, excuse me, if the Spurs would have been knocking down, a little bit more of their shots, if it would have been, I don't want to say a different outcome, because I do think that the Knicks had good control, but the Spurs were off in that game. But I thought the offense was good. I thought Jose Alvarado did a good job pushing the ball. I thought he was a great aggressive. He had good pace to the game as well. Cat looked aggressive in this game as well. I like the way Cat is crucial for the Knicks being successful. He has to get the ball in the paint. He has to be able to score, get to the free throw line, and not just rely on those threes, but a mid range jumper is fine, but getting the ball in the paint is it helps the Knicks out a lot. I thought OG Anunoby was fantastic on both ends of the floor. I thought he was aggressive on defense. I thought he was great as well as on offense as well. I thought Mo Diawara was great in this game as well. He was a nice touch to this game, on D and on offense. He had a nice block. I thought he did a good job. I would like to see his screens get stronger when he's setting those screens. But otherwise, I thought he was a nice touch to this game, and I thought Mikal Bridges looked a lot more aggressive in this game. But Mikal Bridges seems to play well against the Spurs. So overall, I thought offensively and defensively, the Knicks looked good. The ball was moving around. Um, Alvarado made a nice bounce pass to Mikel around a 9-minute mark in the second quarter. That was like a nice look bounce, no look bounce pass that he had. I thought he had a nice look pass that he threw to Mikel as well. I believe that was in the first quarter. But overall, the Knicks had a lot more energy, a lot more pep in their step, which is a good look considering they played such an early game on a Sunday. Play well, get it over with. You got the rest of the day to yourself. Um, but yeah, I thought it was a really good game. When you look at the Knicks' upcoming schedule, what are your thoughts on the Knicks being able to take care of business? I know you got to take it game by game, but the matchups itself against teams, I believe they have Toronto coming up, and then they have OKC, correct? I think they have a back to back because Tuesday
Yeah,
and Wednesday, right?
and they play, I think, OKC at home, right? And then they go out to West and play the Lakers and play
Mm-hmm.
the Lakers or something like that. Well, again, this should be the catalyst for their next four games because I think they have five and they just got this one. So you'd have Toronto. You know, we 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 pretty much handled Toronto, but again, you put the like they say, you put the game behind you, whether it's a win or a loss. This is a new game. So excuse me. I think overall, again, you can't get too high, you can't get too low. Toronto is another team that got some young stars out there.
But they proven they could beat Toronto. My
Exactly.
my thing is, where does the consistency and discipline come from? Because you're saying, okay, you want them to take away from this game, but we've seen the Knicks have these kind of great games. Remember when they played Philly and they had a fantastic game and they were moving the ball, the offense was real fluid, the defense they were locked in. But where does that consistency and level of discipline come from that they can take moving forward and gradually grow upon that? Like, that's where I'm wondering, where does that kick in and where do they get that from, so that way they're not, you win one, you
Well,
lose one, you win two or three, then you lose two. Like, and I'm not saying they're gonna win every game. That's not what I'm expecting from them. But I'm also saying, like, you can't play a game how you played it tonight or how you played in that game a few games ago against Philly, and then all of a sudden you completely drop the ball the next two games and you play like y'all are just starting the season. So it's like this reverting backwards has to stop. And like, where do they break that cycle and build upon that on a better level of consistency? Like, where does that come from? Does that come from coaches? Does that come from the team members and guys talking together? Like, that's what I'm wondering and asking.
well, yeah, it's a little bit of both. Partly the coach and the players. Um, the coach drew up the plays. They in practice. It's all about him making the matchups work, the execution. Whether your timeout. So it's 50 coach and 50 the players because he can't go out there and play. He can only coach them, and it's all about his adjustments. Like you said, Mike Malone said, "Oh, about the adjustment." And you was like, he said, "No, they got to get past the Pistons." So it's all about the coach's adjustment. Can he make those adjustments on the fly? if the threes are not falling, the damn it, don't keep shooting threes. Like, so
Exactly.
again, it's partly, the coach is 50% coaching and the other 50% are the players. Because they have to, you know, make the adjustment if the three is not falling, because they shot when Cleveland horrible.
Yeah.
And so it happened this game. Both of them really shot, crappy from the 3 point line. Just
Yeah.
that the Knicks, they other things, other intangibles that caused them to beat the Spurs. But this game overall, they shot horrible. So, you know, he didn't really have to make that big of an adjustment. It was just the matchups, and they just played the Spurs like a different way. So if things are not going so well during the Toronto game and OKC, can Mike Brown make the adjustment? So again, it's a both of them have to take part of that blame.
Yeah. I I do think that for sure it is half and half, and the half of it that comes from coaching, the coaching staff. I do think that that's where you kind of look to see, because there is this pressure on Mike Brown. The Knicks organization want to go further and continue to go further. And, you taking over where Tibbs was, but I think a lot of Knicks fans can agree when we watched that Detroit game. Remember, I said to you, I kept saying, why is Brunson guarding Cade? Never once did he make an adjustment in that game. And then this is another thing that falls under that consistency and discipline. The Knicks have to hit these free throws because they're gonna bite them in the butt if you can't knock them down in the postseason. They missed a ton of free throws today. And then
Yeah,
I think the 3 point line, they only shot like 35% after they put
yeah,
up almost 100 damn threes, but they couldn't knock them down. So, it's things like the free throws. Also, I want to see a better concerted effort of getting Cat involved in the games, because this is another thing I heard Mike Malone say. He said the Knicks are good when they have when they have a two-man involved. And yes, like today you had Mikal and you had Brunson play really well. And then, I'll give it to Cat with a double double as well, played well. But I always say that with the Knicks, like you gotta have two guys, if not three, at least two guys who are gonna perform well. It can't just be a Brunson show and then everyone else is kind of like mediocre in the games, and you know, I've fallen to what you have said where you're like, Mikel is gonna give you what he's gonna give you. You can't expect too much from him because you're not gonna get that, or you're gonna be disappointed. And now I'm just like, whatever. I fell back off of the whole beating a dead horse over Mikal Bridges, because it's true. Like, Mikal could have a night like tonight, and then the next two games you may get 12 from him, maybe
yeah,
11, you may get 10. You know what I mean? And then he's not as aggressive. And my thing is, okay, if you're going to give us 10 points, cool, but then you got to play aggressive. Like, I don't like that playing too soft. And maybe some people was offended by that. I don't care, because the last podcast I named the title too soft, and I guess people didn't want to hear it. But it's the truth. We're not gonna just talk about the good. Mikel, a lot of times, my issue with him is that I'm not always looking for you to give us 25, 30 points. But like on the defensive end as well. And I said, I understand that he has a hard job every night of usually guarding whoever's the best guard of, small for whoever on the other team. I get that. But when your defense, you're playing alongside of the guy, and then you lose him, and now somebody else has to pick up your man, now that causes a lapse in the defense. And then the other thing that I'm looking for with consistency from the coaching staff and for them to build upon and get better at is the defense. The Knicks are still doubling at times, or they're crowding the interior paint. And I'm not sure why that's still happening. And what's happening is the other team are swinging the ball. and there's someone open in the corner or at the top of the key, or so I'm just wondering, and I hear you what you're saying. It Mike Brown can't go out there and play the game for them, but you're the leader and leadership on that team. You're the coach. So where does the changes and adjustments are made? When do those occur? And that we're not seeing the same kind of, there's no like small changes and tweaks. Like we know what this Knicks, when they're locked in and they're on this Knicks team, this roster is a dangerous roster. They're very good. We've seen that. But what I want to see is a better concerted effort of consistency. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we've seen the Knicks go win 7, 8, 9 games in a row. You know, we've seen the Knicks play very good basketball like they did it tonight and like they did against Philly a few nights ago when they played them, and it was just beautiful, fluid, like locked in, you know, basketball on both ends of the floor. But then my thing is like, okay, the test comes now. And it really started back when before they played that Detroit game. And I said, okay, here's the test now. Because my thing is like, I know you could beat the Spurs. We know you could beat Toronto. And these are the games that you shouldn't be losing. You should be stacking your wins on. But now when you play OKC, you play the Lakers, you know what I mean? You're gonna play Boston coming up. You know, you're gonna be playing who else they got coming
The
up that I
Clippers
saw?
out west, they got the Clippers they on their schedule when they go out west. I think they gonna be Denver's I think, at Denver. So like I said, they have a tough schedule, coming up. Like I said, they have one of the toughest schedules, moving forward, But how they respond is going to be key. And again,
Yeah,
you don't want to be that team where you fall into that fifth. If you could stay third and possibly move up to second, hey, that's even better. So
agreed.
you want to stay in that even kill, second or third, you know, and so
Yeah. Yeah, I agree because the East is so tight in the standings. And that's another thing I'm looking for the Knicks to do is create some separation. You know,
mm,
and I know there's some Knicks fans who will say, oh, well, the regular season's not really that important. It's what you do in the postseason. They're two different elements, right? The regular season, it is just as important because you want to protect home court. You know, you want to protect your standings and your seedings, which leads up to the postseason. So it is just as important because you could blink and all of a sudden now the Knicks are in fourth or fifth. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's possible. So it is key that they stay on track and build up these wins and rack up these consecutive wins. So I don't know. I also want to see the Knicks try to create some type of separation away from Boston and Cleveland, who's like, you know, they're trading that standings where you're in third and then you're in second, you're back in third. And it's like a back and forth kind of
yeah,
yo-yo game going on with the standings in the East. But that's what I mean when it goes back to what I was reiterating originally, which I want to see from Mike Brown better schematics set up. I want to see more involvement from Carl Anthony Towns, getting the ball, more touches in the game. You know, and not every game is going to be his game. But even if he's able to get the ball, it could take away from the pressure of, okay, Brunson always have to put up and do what he, you know, and score a basket when there's times where sometimes it is only a two-man game. It may just be Brunson and Cat, or it may just be Brunson and OG. For the Knicks to play really well, you're gonna need more than really two guys to be, you know,
oh for sure,
giving
yeah.
us production. I'm sorry, it's not gonna cut it. And the team so far that has figured out how to handle the Knicks, Detroit. You and I have spoken about this. Bickerstaff in Detroit are still feeling salty because they lost, rightfully so. And it's like they were in summer school studying tapes and watching and how to figure out how to shut down. Because granted, Brunson has been off against Detroit, but with the way they playing that full court defense, They got the Thompson twin on him. And not to say Brunson can't take him, but he's figured out and his defense has gotten better, Thompson. And their defense on the Knicks it reminds me of when we played Philly in the playoffs and they was doing they had Batum and they was like switching off. Sometimes they had what's his name on Brunson as well. But it's to that level, but 10 times better, the defense. And I just don't see any other option when we play Detroit. It just looks flat. And that's another thing that I want to see changed as well. Like some games when you really watch the defense, like I'll just be like really dived in and I'm looking at like everybody, whoever's on the floor. Like I'm looking at what are they doing offensively. And the Knicks, some games will look so stagnant. Like no one's trying to make a move to score. They're just passing it around, back and forth, passing it around. And then, like you said, sometimes that's where Brunson has to resort to, well, let me just go do something and score. The only other player I'll say that I'll give him credit for doing that when he is having a good game, because he's been a little bit up and down lately, but we know what he can do is OG Ananobi, and he'll take the ball to the basket. And
Yeah,
a lot of times with the way he goes about scoring, I'm like, thank you. Because he could have just shot it, but he'll take it in for the easy dunk or the layup. And, I like to see that. But I think there's still a nice little pot of things that I'm like, I want to see some changes. There's a pot of things of different seasonings that I'm like, they need to be blended together, but they're not blended together. They're just all in a pot in their respective spot, but they haven't been kinked out and worked out yet. So I'm looking for Mike Brown to implement these changes and do it now before we get to the postseason. I heard someone say that Cat and Josh Hart was saying they're still trying to figure things out or figure out the offense rather on his team. And I'm like, it's too late. Like
too
we're
late now, buddy.
yeah, we're deep in the second half of the season. I think it's a little too late for that. But I don't know. Do you feel like are there any with what I was saying with those changes that need to be made? One, do you think that it's possible for the Knicks to make those changes? And then two, do you think that we'll start to see that in the second half of the season?
Well, yeah, it's definitely possible for them to make that change because, you know, the Knicks had their own little, win streak going at one point, and they were doing something right. They have that. What was it? A 9 game win streak before it was they lost. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely possible. They just have to just tap into, you know, what brought about that win streak and how did they get there, and get back to those winning ways.
right,
Um, so yeah, I mean, and like I said, I still revert back to this game because, you know, look what they did. They held Wemby to 25 points. Yeah, it was 8 for 17. Field goals, 1 for 7 and 3 point. They at one point they had Cat on him, and then they switched to OG. So it's like again, you use this as a catalyst, and to hopefully because again they got a tough road game ahead of them. Um, so you get back to those winning ways. If yeah, he's a tough coverage, Wemby. I
yeah,
mean,
it's really good.
exactly. Even at one point when Cat had that foul, Cat said he's remember that foul they called on Cat, but he did, dip his shoulders. And Cat said he's 7'4", 260. Okay, but dude, you still can't, dip your shoulders down.
Right,
So like he's a tough matchup. Um you saw when Castle just threw that wasn't even a lob.
right. It's too easy. Yeah,
Yeah, so again, when if you could take a player like that out of their comfort zone and force them into tough shots, then you did your job, and this is what they're gonna need to do. Yeah, they could get back to those winning ways for sure.
when you think about okay, let's say like playoff starts and we play in Detroit, who are you putting on Cade? Who should
I
be playing defense on him?
I would definitely go with an OG. Even Sohan, like when he first came in, yeah, Cade did score on him, but he before he did score him, he did um force Cade into a tough shot. He just has to just get the wind under him and and get out there. But it's tough because you got Mo playing so great. It's like he's eating up those minutes. That's possible. But you know what? If it comes down to that, you don't know. Maybe he will because by then he'll have more practice in with the team and so forth like that. So things could change at any moment. But I would definitely, you know, somebody like an OG or even try a Sohan and see how that works out.
Yeah, I think OG or Sohan is a better fit. I don't want to see Brunson on him. It just
Or
looks
McCann.
laughable. Or you said, or who, Mikal?
Yes.
Yeah, no. Because Mikal was getting flung around against Detroit. I was like,
Yep.
is Mikal feeling okay? I was like, is he feeling weak? Because the way he was getting flipped and flung around that floor, I was like, what's going on? And again, I know, and you're right. Detroit, agree. They're a very physical team, but I was just like, this is not working, So I want to, and then, I think about, okay, when you play against an OKC, who do you put on SGA? I mean, because I think certain teams, the Knicks match up well against and can play well against those teams. But I think defensively, when the Knicks are locked in, they're great. But the matchups have to be right as well. And what I think another thing Mike Brown may have to do is we've seen him do this before where he'll, if Cat is in foul trouble, he'll interchange and have Cat in for the offense and then put Mitch in for the defense. And maybe you have to do that. I'm just saying against a Detroit. Maybe, excuse me, maybe Diawara is playing well offensively, or kind of like what you was alluding, maybe Diawara's off. So then maybe, and that's where I think you still have to remember you have what's his name?
Clark.
Clarkson, who you could also utilize as well, because you never know. He could be a spark for the team. He's been sitting, he hasn't been in the rotation, but I think that Brown may have to go back to that and use that. Where maybe, okay, if Mo is playing well, you have him in, and then maybe you gotta put Sohan in to guard a Cade, because maybe his defense would be more aggressive and disruptive, unlike maybe what Diawara playing, defense on a Cade. I'm just using as an example. Maybe it's not as aggressive and front facing and being able to stay in front of him. And also, I think with Sohan, you just got to also watch the fouls and not falling for every little fake, which Josh Hart has to work on that because he falls for every little head fake, every head nod, and he gets up in the air. Now he loses his guy. Now someone else has to step up and guard, and it causes a lapse in defense. But I think that that's something that maybe Brown may have to go to is you may have to switch them off. You can't just keep, because to me, if you just keep rocking with, oh, okay, I'm gonna just leave Mo out there. Well, how you know if we didn't play on, he may have been able to, give you that stop defensively and give you a little bit more. He can give you what GTA gives you defensively, So I don't know. I think that, you know, I want to see some changes made from the coach's standpoint of saying, okay, this is what I want to see. This is what I don't want to see. We don't need that. This is what we need, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just curious to see moving forward, especially with this tough remainder of the season schedule that the Knicks have. How do they get battle tested, and how do they respond, as you said, because when the Knicks are good, they're really good. But I don't want to see this up and down pattern of you play really well and then the next game you scratch your head and go, why did you just embarrass yourselves? Like when they played Cleveland, So I think there's still some, holes with this team that need to be patched together, and they need to figure out, what they're doing, because I still see like inconsistencies, and I still stand by what I said. I think this team also lacks discipline, and they're not disciplined enough to be able to go battle test against a lot of these other teams, and they're more than capable, but I just think that it's going to be very interesting how the Knicks finish the second half of this season, and then how they approach the playoffs. First of all, we want health first because we want everybody to be healthy and available. But then just also like we know the Knicks could get past round one. We know the Knicks could get past round two. But when you get to round three, are you gonna lose all your stamina and you get tired and now you just don't have nothing left in the tank to each round is specifically made to get harder. It's not meant to get easier. Are the Knicks, is it still too early for you to tell or say, and maybe you need to wait until the end of March to say where you still stand on where the Knicks are going to finish their regular season record? I think you had them at 53 wins.
Yeah, 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 that was I still have them at 53, but I still think, yeah, March, you have to, weigh it out, because again, they have a tough, you know, after they play OKC at home with on Tuesday, I think it's Tuesday, something like that. Then they
No,
have
I think it's Wednesday because I think they
Wednesday.
play Toronto and then it's
Okay,
OKC.
yeah, yeah, okay, you're right. So they have a tough road game. They got um Denver Friday, LA Sunday, LA the Clippers Monday, Utah Wednesday, the Pistons, I mean excuse me, the Pacers Friday. So that's a 5 game road trip right there. So
Right.
and we know that the pit Halliburton may not be playing, but that seems to be a tough matchup with them.
I
Um
don't understand that one neither against Indiana.
yeah,
Why the Knicks can't figure out how to beat them.
and,
And this is not just this season.
yeah,
I
this
don't know
goes
what it
back.
is about Siakam. The Knicks can't figure out how to stop him. I
Yeah,
don't understand it. It's so
yeah,
even when OG's guarding him, he just still has his way. The Knicks cannot figure out how to beat this team.
yeah. So it's just too soon to tell even where they'll fall at. So I'm definitely gonna have to wait until March before I do any more darn predictions for the Knicks. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But like if they could just string some wins, and then stay consistent, because that's always the key with the Knicks, the inconsistency with them. Um, and you could pretty much get well, I just saw the Pistons beat the Magic, so you could just kind of see where they're at for the most part, as far as like where they're gonna be 3, 4 seed, and X, Y, and Z. So I think I'm gonna wait.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same. I'm gonna wait till after March and then I can get a better gauge on how they'll finish the regular season record. And then who knows? I still stand by a player like I said, Mikal. I don't think sometimes, but I think Mikal is one of those players. He's preserving his playoff energy for the playoffs.
Well, well, speaking up, what's so funny that you mentioned that. I forgot what I was watching. It might have been one of them shows on TV. Somebody said, "Oh," or might even been a podcast. They said, "Oh, the Knicks are playing like they're bored. They're waiting for the playoffs to come." I'm like, huh? How? Like, why where did they come up with that conclusion that they're playing like they're bored? Yeah, I get it. They take it up a notch because it's that playoff intensity. But I think you gotta play like you want to be made within the 2 or 3 slot. So how? Where did they come up with that? Bonehead, conclusion. Like they're playing like they're bored. But how?
Maybe maybe they're getting that from how the Knicks performed last season in the playoffs. They turned it up to a different level,
For
and
sure.
a lot of people had the Knicks. I think even Knicks fans were a little nervous when we had to face against Boston. And when the Knicks, just dominated in round one and two, it was like, wow, they were able to face adversity, and they were just so persistent on winning. And it just showed like a different level of this team, the grittiness, the toughness. And I tell you, and I still stand by this, and that's why I said I'm saying it now. I think Alvarado is going to be a huge difference maker in the playoffs. Because I think his energy is so infectious that it's going to literally have other players gravitate towards that high energy of him being able to cause turnovers, steals, and just pushing the pace. And I think that that's going to be huge for this team in the postseason. But I don't know. I think that that's probably where they're getting that, conclusion from last season and how the Knicks played in the playoffs. And then you saw a guy like Mikal who, Mikal, he floats by. He has these moments where he does really well, then he plateaus, but for the most part, he skates on by. And last year in the playoffs, I was like, wow, look at Mikal. Like the way
He
he
turned
was
it
playing
up.
defense on Brown and just the way he was playing. So I don't know, maybe, some guys on this team, you never know in the playoffs, they may just step it up a whole notch and give you more. And maybe the Knicks as a team, individually, but as a team, maybe they're preserving that energy for the playoffs and to bring that heat really, which at the end of the day, they have to because Dolan's not going to stand for one and done first round or second round. So,
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
aside from the Knicks, the starters, the bench, we got a deeper bench this year. So you know, Mo is like ascending. This guy, he amazes me every time. He get on the floor. So you got players who you can rely on. Mitch, I mean, just his impact, and when he comes in, his impact is instantaneous, like
Instant.
immediate.
Hmm.
Yeah, he had 5 rebounds, but just and the second and third chance opportunity that he give the Knicks. So you got your big right there. You got Mo, Shamit, man. This guy he's playing bananas. Um, and Deuce, I mean, he's expected, but we don't know when because he's saying his recovery is a slow process. So I don't know what that means. Is he coming? Is he's expected to come? He's expected to come back, but as of right now, you're just playing without him, and I'm quite sure that's what they're doing, planning, without him because you have to. The show don't stop for one, just because one man is down. But you know, go ahead.
No, I didn't say nothing.
Oh, like I said, you gotta just continue to play like that bench and just let them play. They today they have 6 players in double figures, and that's something the Spurs, again, they just played the complete game. The Spurs, they have like a deep rotation for the most part. Um, they typically can have 8 guys, 6 to sometimes 8 guys in double figures. They only have 3 in double figures. So that says a lot about the Knicks, their fortitude, and their grit, and just how they were able to hold the Spurs to such a low, output. So that was, kudos to them, man. They they played great.
Yeah. You touched on the Knicks having depth this year. I think they for sure have depth, but they also have depth who can give you something. Because in the past, the Knicks didn't really have any depth on the bench. Who was it? It was Shamit and McBride, and that's not enough. And
Yeah,
then
for sure.
two, you know, I think the difference is the type of guys we have now on the bench. They can actually score. They can play defense. They're versatile players versus like Shamit has one of the best defensive um, plays that I see him play night in and night out. Like his defense is aggressive. He's locked in. He's able to keep up with whoever he's guarding. He's a disruptor. You know,
Yeah,
I appreciate his defense. Like when I watch him, I'm like, damn, these a lot of these guys need to take notes. And that's how I feel when Mitch plays defense. Like I'm like, damn, Cat, are you watching? Because for him
yeah,
to be a big, he's getting down to a squat like he a guard, and he's ready to like he's able to smack the ball away and get be a disruptor as well, not just in the paint, but even on the outside. There was a few possessions in today's game where I was like, I don't know why Mitchell Robinson was leaving um Wembayana so much space on a 3-pointer because I'm like, he can hit that. I don't know
hmm,
why was he like, challenged, not, and I don't think it was an intentional challenge, but I was like, dude, you can't leave him that much space. He's gonna, and he did. He made it right in his face, and I'm like, you can't do that. So, but otherwise than that, I think that now this Knicks team actually has guys that Brown could work with and bring them in. And then there's not so much pressure on the starting five to have to produce. Or if someone's off, okay, now you got 4 or 5 guys now who you could pick from, damn near six, to come in and get the job done. So, like I said, I'm just looking for this team to show discipline. We know they could get gritty, they can be tough, but it's about the discipline and being consistent, and we'll see how this remaining second half of the season and this month in particular, March, plays out in the Knicks' favor, right? So we'll
yeah.
see. Shout out to everybody in the chat. I can actually see the chat from here. Um, Let me see. Let's see who we got in the chat. Ooh, the chat was busy. Wow. Shout out to Cool Breeze 718. He said, Brunson good for team. The problem is when they not hitting shots. Yeah. Yeah, Brunson, I mean, and from what I was reading, Brunson said he wants to stay in the on the Knicks. He doesn't want to go and play anywhere else. Eddie C, salute to you, Eddie. He said we made run and increase lead with Hart on the bench. Yeah. Yeah, Josh Hart, this was an okay game from him. I've seen Josh play better in the past. So yeah. Eddie said Hart has confidence problems. Cool Breeze said I trust Hart more than Kumo D in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I would too because Hart has the experience for sure.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he has a point.
Yeah. Who else? Cool Breeze 718 said Pistons still have to prove they win a playoff series. A series is different. You have to beat a team 4 times. Yeah, this is true, but I don't think they're gonna go out so easily. And again, we seen what happened last year, how Cleveland was like the number one seed in the East and got bopped out. So anything is possible in the playoffs.
Yep.
Shout out to Nostalgic Nick. Salute to you for joining us as well. Eddie C said the Pistons play better defense on Brunson. Yeah, the Pistons have figured out how to guard Brunson completely. I've
Yeah.
noticed that they shut him down. So that's why the Knicks need to figure out, you know, I don't know. They have to figure out something because what they're doing now is not working. Latoria B, salute to you. I've been seeing you on a Dope Soul Sports Collective show. I like your takes on that show, so shout out to
Oh,
you. And
yeah. See
I'm,
her?
I'm, I'm sure Steph is happy to have another female because she gotta have all the men on the show. So shout out to you. You know I love your takes and what you have to say about the Knicks and your knowledge of the game. And it's nice to see another female on there as well. And shout out to Steph, Jeff. They do their weekly recaps. I'm sure they'll be on tomorrow. I usually listen to them on my walk. So shout out to Chef, Steph and Jeff. Somebody said there has a nice ring to it. It does. The Steph and Jeff show.
Oh,
So
yeah.
shout out to them and shout out to the Thursday night cast as well with Ajay, Jarrell. I know Nick Nation's been joining them as well. Delusional Nicks. And I feel like I'm missing somebody else, but shout out to them. And Latoria B, it's nice to see you on there as well. Nostalgic Nick said it's 20 games left. Let's get to the playoffs healthy. I agree 100%. That's what I want. I just want this team to go into the playoffs healthy. I want to be able to see we have everybody, Mitch, everyone, um, ready to play. Who else? I think, oh, no, here goes one. This is a funny name. Shout out to Cycly. He said he put Bridges in on Cade too, but Cade destroyed. Yeah,
Yeah, you know what I
Bridges.
say about Bridges? He's the three S's: skinny, slow, and too small.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah. Bridges. He can play good defense, but you just sometimes he makes you wonder, and you're like, what's up,
but he's no
dude? Like,
matchup for Cade.
no, not at all, not at all. Because Cade had him on skates. I like that handle, Cycly. Um, yeah, Mikal can't guard him, and I don't want to see um, Brunson on him either. Eddie C said we must start aggressively against Toronto. Yeah, because Toronto's gonna want revenge. The Knicks tore them up the last game.
Yeah.
So Toronto, and I don't know, are they gonna have quickly or is he still out?
Got him on the third, and then they play him again at home on April 10th. So,
Kareem Grant, salute to you, always showing love. He says, salute to the chat and Lady and Diva. Much love, my sisters. Salute to you, Kareem. It's nice to hear from you. I'm a little slow with the chat because, I'm not on my usual setup. Eddie said, do we need to finish second in the East to meet Detroit in the Eastern Conference Finals? I don't think it would necessarily mean that they would have to finish second, right? Because I think it would end up how they fall, right? Like each round, or am I wrong?
if Detroit's still hanging around. So I'm like, hey, like you said, we saw what happened with Cleveland. Detroit could get meet their demise as well. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm optimistic.
Yeah. Jay Boogie, salute to you. He says,
Salute.
shout out to the chat. Y'all see it. The family is on TV tonight. Y'all know the vibe. Smash that button. Salute, salute, salute. Three capital S's. Salute to you, Jay Boogie. I did see Jay Boogie was on one of the shows too recently um, that I was watching, I was listening to. C. Cartagena, salute to you. Said, big win, good showing. Yeah, that was a good solid win. And it's good to see the Knicks, this is their second win in a row. So I like to see that from the Knicks. Let's get that momentum up. Cliff Clerville, 8149 salutes you, said, LOL. I've met Spike Lee at Knicks fan TV watch parties. He really do look like him. I had to do a double take at times. That is hilarious. Wait. Cliff Clerville said, Hey, what's up? I just stumbled across your page. Love the dialogue. Keep the passion. Let's go, Knicks. Salute to you. And shout out to everybody who's new here, joining us for the first time watching. Shout out to the replay gang as well, to our Knicks fan TV people that come over as well, those who come over from other channels. Salute to you as well. And shout out to all our subscribers who do join us and tune in. Salute to you as well. Um,
Replay gang.
yeah, the replay gang as well, running up the numbers. Yeah, Clarkson is out of the rotation, but I think that's because, Diawara's been playing well. And I don't know. I've seen Clarkson play in the games, and the last two games I saw him play, and you guys can go back and watch the replay. It's like he had baby oil on his hands. The ball was slipping right through his hands. And maybe Mike Brown was like, "Listen, enough. You playing out there like you a rookie." But I'm still not giving up hope on Jordan Clarkson because I think that he can be that player that comes in a post game series where, and out of that round, there may be that one or two games where Mike Brown will put him in and maybe he's on fire. You know what I mean? He could
Dark
give you,
horse.
right, exactly. He may give you 13, 16 points off the bench, and that was 13, 16 that you needed because maybe OG is off that night, or maybe Mikal is off that night, and you bring him in. So, listen, at this rate, I'm all about stay ready. That was a big mantra when Tibbs was the coach. So stay ready.
And that's what I like about Mo. You know, gotta
Yeah, he
stay ready.
always looks
Have to get.
ready, right?
Yep.
DJ Space Go salute to you, said team is still starting to gel and Mo's development has been good to see. Agreed. He's truly developing. Now I always say with him and Kolick, even Kolick, I like Kolik's mentality and energy. They never look down. They're
Mm-hmm.
cheering for the team. Huck Porty, they're cheering for the teams. They're staying positive and they're staying ready, even if they're only playing 2 minutes. And sometimes Huck Porty has to play a little bit more minutes, but they're staying ready. They don't look like lost puppies out there. They look like they know where they need to be on defense and offense. And that's how you have to be because you never know when your number's going to get called. So, and I hope that Jordan Clarkson stays ready, but keeps himself in it. And I know it's hard when you're not getting the minutes in real time. It's different versus practice, but I want him to stay ready because
Mm-hmm.
I think I did see him today, and maybe that was just at one point the camera kind of caught him, but he was kind of like, how you sitting almost like you sitting at the damn DMV or the post office and you've been waiting a long time and you start slouching in your chair. He was sitting
Yeah.
like that. And it didn't look like he was sulking or mad, but it was just like the body language of how he was sitting. But I said, maybe that was just that one point in time when the camera just so happened to pan to him and that's how he
Yeah.
looked,
Mm-hmm. Could be.
so I just want him to stay ready as well because I'm calling it now. I'm telling you, he may be like Diva Lux said, that dark horse who Brown may put him in one of them playoff series, and we like, yo, he gave us a lift. Maybe Shamit is off one night, and you bring in Clarkson. Clarkson may be able to substitute what you was supposed to be getting from Shamit or Mikel or OG. So we have to utilize all options. And I think that's also what's going to be a difference maker for the Knicks. Really throwing different adjustments at teams and different schemes and different lineups at teams versus being so heavy Cat, Brunson, McKell, OG. Like and Hart. You got to switch it up with a mixture of those starters, but I think that that's what's going to throw teams off guard. Throw something at them that they ain't see already, that they're not expecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? Multi-power down, salute to you. He said Jordan Clarkson lost in space. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it sucks when you get out of the lineup, because with him being a veteran. But listen, that's part of it. You cheer on your team because you never know, and stay confident. Know what you can
Yeah.
do and what you could bring. Papa Music, salute to you. He said, I'm here for the first time. Good takes. I'll pass it on to my next posse. Salute to you. Appreciate that. And appreciate you stopping by. There was another comment. I think I passed it that I wanted to go to. Another. Yeah, hit him up. NYNJ said the Knicks got off to another slow start today. Yeah, but they redeemed themselves. But those slow starts could be they could be a little concerning sometimes. Because I think I passed it. The comment I wanted to. Oh, here it is. It was Eddie. He said, respectfully, how do you know Bridges is saving energy for the playoffs? You have esoteric powers. I don't know. I'm just going by what he did last year. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not saying that this is true, but last year he was the same way he was this season, just, kind of cruising by. I always say Mikal gives me the vibes of a player who's works for a union job and they just want to get their 20 years in, perfect attendance, get their pension and get out. And
Yeah,
then you
but
have nights like tonight where he played like,
yeah,
okay,
lights out. And like
right.
you said, yeah, he came up huge for us in the playoffs. I mean, you got to give it to him. I mean, eh, back to back like games, so it wasn't like it was just one and he just faded in the win. He came up huge.
Agreed. Eddie C said it's an indictment on our coaches for not figuring out how to beat the Pacers with a losing record. I think also Detroit too,
Yeah,
because you
even though
haven't figured out how to beat both teams. So
yeah, yeah,
I'm
you
putting the
got one.
pressure on Mike Brown.
Exactly, because you got one with a losing record, one with a winning record, and they both are physical and they play fast. So it's like, well, you can't leave one. You got to lump them both in. One with a losing record, one with a winning record, and they're both physical teams, and they like to run and gun. So how you figure that out? Like that's something. That's a coach's thing that he has to figure that out.
And that's one thing I think also we need to group into that pot we were talking about earlier. The Knicks are not going to always be able to control slowing down a team. I think they have to figure out how to, right? But also you have to be able to have some pull and be able to run on offense at your pace and not allowing the defense to dictate how fast or slow you should be playing. This sometimes when the Knicks come down, that one pass and the shoot, sometimes it's just not necessary and it's not smart basketball. Sometimes Brunson comes across the half court and he pops the shot. I saw Shaman do that once tonight where he took a quick dribble and then shot the ball. And I'm like, that's not your game. But the Knicks are going to have to figure out how to not allow teams to dictate their pace when they're on offense. And then how to not allow teams to run them out the gym because the other team is playing so fast up and down the court that the Knicks just look like, rag dolls out there. They're trying to catch up and then you're a step or too late, too slow. So I definitely do think that the Knicks, that is a great point that they have to figure out with, Indiana and Detroit are two great examples. I thought the Knicks did a good job against Houston, figuring out how to make them play at the Knicks pace. They shut them down both defensively, offensively. The Knicks played better. So that is something and we didn't mention earlier in the show, the Knicks are going to have to figure that out because you can't allow these teams like the Pacers, like you said, the Knicks never really have control over the pace when they pay them. No pun intended, the Pacers play at what pace they want to play. And the Knicks seem to not know how to figure out how to slow them down. And the same thing with Detroit. Detroit, when I was watching that game, I said, wow, they just making easy baskets. And when the Knicks were going down on their end of the floor, the Knicks were just settling for jump shots. And I'm like,
Yep.
yo, even though you're not shooting a bunch of threes, I'm like, you got to take it in, get them in foul trouble. And this is what I mean. If you're Mike Brown, you got to be like, yo, I just want y'all to attack. Let's get in the paint. Let's get them in foul trouble. Let's stop the clock. Let's get to the free throw line. You got to knock down the free throws too as well. But that's what you need to see. So yeah, I think that Mike Brown, there's some pressure on him to figure out, how to pace, not just the Knicks pace, but playing against these other teams. I think that was everybody up. Shout out to APAP1586. Salute to you, Liberty fan as well. I hope you get to go to that Liberty game, APAP. I know you said you bought tickets. Still not looking good though.
Nope.
APAP said everyone is putting Detroit in the Eastern Conference Finals. I have doubt that they will make it that far. Yeah. I was thinking the other day, I was like, a team I would probably see maybe going a little further than Detroit, I was saying was the Spurs. But I could be wrong. Again, because Detroit is playing at a different level. I don't think that they've been lucky. I think that they're earning their wins.
Oh, for sure.
They for sure have earned being in that number one spot. But again, I always go back to look at what happened with both like Cleveland and Boston last year. You can't just go by that regular season. So, and we know what the Knicks can do. We've seen the Knicks where they've gotten down by 20 and 25. I don't want to see that so much this season, but if it happens, it happens. But you don't want to get yourself in those type of positions and get yourself in a hole in that regard. But I don't know. Yeah, we're still monitoring what's going on with the WNBA. I mean, listen, as a former season ticket holder, I will say this. The New York Liberty are emailing me, and it's not just the Liberty, it's all WNBA teams. They're emailing people who've previously gone to games or were season ticket holders as if the season is happening. So I don't know what delusional land they're in, but from what I'm seeing, and I'm keeping up every day, there seems to be a lack of transparency and as far as what the WNBA numbers are. And the players are like, we're not dumb. We know that y'all have more money than that. And I still stand with the players. Stand 10 toes down. Don't cave in. Get your money. Because the same way NBA players go after getting their bag, you got to be the same way. So, you know. But yeah, I think that's all for me today, Divalux. Do you have anything else?
Nah, nope. That's it. Like I said, I'm just looking to see what they're gonna do that 5 game road trip that's coming up.
What is your predictions? They play Tuesday, Wednesday, then they play again, what, Sunday and Monday?
Yeah, so, you know what? Because that's like out west, especially that man. I'm gonna go. How many games did you say? That was Tuesday, Wednesday.
It's five.
Yeah,
Well, I,
yeah.
I don't know if you want to just go by next week, but
Um, we could. I'm just gonna do. Um, well, that's three. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm gonna go. You know me, I hate betting against my Knicks, but because I like this game on today, and I know OKC is a totally different ball game. But the Spurs figured them out, so let's see if the Knicks can figure them out. So I'm gonna go 3-0 as my per usual.
It's Toronto, OKC, and who's the Friday game?
and Denver.
Okay, I'm gonna go
Denver
two.
lost today, so but hey, that
I'm
was
gonna I'm gonna go 2-1.
who's that one? I know OKC, right?
I'm thinking it could be OKC or Toronto, surprisingly, because the Knicks. You know how sometimes those games where you like, oh, that's a win, and then you like, well, what
Yeah,
happened? I
I can.
feel like it could be that game, but I'm gonna go 2-1 because the Knicks match up well with Denver, and Denver is one of those teams as well, like Toronto. They're gonna be looking to get their revenge as well. So I'm gonna go, yeah, I'm gonna go 2-1. I'm looking for the Knicks to close out
Fair
and
enough.
yeah, stay strong. So, but yeah, shout out to everybody for joining us today. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I hope everybody has a great upcoming week. And we'll be recapping the upcoming games coming up as well and giving our takes. Let us know your predictions on these upcoming weeks' games as well. If you guys haven't already, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't as well. Shout out to the replay gang. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to all the other Knicks content creators as well. And as Diva Lux always says, let's go Knicks. And until next time, everybody, we'll see everybody